people have their own kind of context, their family, their friends, their workplace. And sometimes if you can isolate them from that context, they become much more vulnerable to you, right? They don't have any friends, they don't have any support anymore, so they only can rely on you. And it's something that is done over time, right? So if you're confronting with a male seducer who is trying to turn you off from your friends, who is making it so that your best friend, oh, I don't think you should trust her, I think she's up to something, right? He's trying to do things like that. He's trying to alienate you from your family. I think your parents were really awful to you, etc., is a very classic technique, because in your sense of isolation, you're much more vulnerable to getting support from this particular person. And so one of the tactics that I talk about in the book is taking the person to another country or to another place where they, even on a holiday or a vacation, where they feel unsupported, where they feel a little bit alone and isolated for several weeks, kind of break down that element and make them want to turn to you for trust and support. So if you feel that a man is trying to isolate you in the subtlest ways from your friends, from your family, from the place where you live, and is criticizing that and trying to make you feel like, maybe I don't like these things. Maybe that friend isn't really somebody I can trust. This is somebody you should be very, very suspicious of. It's a terrible tactic. It's trying to isolate you socially from the things that support you. And you should be very, very suspicious, and you should not give in to that.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite analogies is, have you ever seen like water that drips on a rock? And if it goes over and over years and years, the rock ends up changing its shape. Yeah. I think of narcissistic tactics as that analogy, because as you were describing it, imagine you have the person that's subtly giving you these negative comments about your family, subtly giving you these negative comments about your friends. Over time, you end up starting to question it. You start to look at something you never would have looked for. Yeah. And before you know it, that slow dripping effect that your toxic partner has had on you has eventually changed the way that you see the world and the way you see people around you.
Right, right.
I've also had on my show a cult expert, and it was a guy who literally assesses cults and tries to help rescue people from cults. And one of the tactics is they remove you from your family.
Oh, completely. They become your family. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they put you in an environment where everyone believes the same thing. That way, if you go to speak up, everyone looks at you like you're the outlier, like you're the crazy one. And so that isolation where you don't have anyone to turn to kind of like, like, is this normal? Is this right? Like, you don't have those people around you to ask. And so now you end up feeling like it's all on you, or like you're going crazy.
And also, as you kind of alluded to, they kind of isolate you mentally, where they make you question your own values and your own ideas. Mm-hmm. So their values and ideas now are the only ones you can rely upon. So one of the isolations is from the things that you in your brain kind of use to support you, that you rely upon, the values that you hold dear. If they can chip away at that, then you're even more isolated, you're even more vulnerable.
How would they chip away at a value? Can you give me an example?
Let's say you're a religious person, right? Mm-hmm. And you believe very strongly and your belief in God is something very important to you. And they start kind of chipping away at that about, that's so irrational. How can you in the 21st century believe that somebody changed water into wine and walked on water? How ridiculous. And they're being more subtle than that. But they're slowly chipping away at a very important value that you have, which is your faith in God, right?
And then just thinking about, like, if they did it in a mocking tone, like, I think that would be even more insulting, because it's this, like, little comment. And then if you say, well, hang on a minute, that was really offensive, then again, that person can come back and say, oh, you're so sensitive.
Exactly.
And they just keep turning it back. Yeah, it just keeps turning it back on you.
That's one of the strategies about insinuation. You insinuate doubts into the other person.
God, that's unfortunately powerful. So we're going to go to number 18 now, which is stir up the transgressive and the taboo. I actually was shocked to see that. So talk to me about why stirring up the taboo actually helps as part of the seduction.
Now, what shocked you about that?
I just thought it would be maybe like if someone's a little prudish, it may be like a turn off, like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. And people can sometimes almost be offensive more than it is like intriguing.
Well, seduction involves by nature an element of transgressive and taboo. So the word itself has this kind of edge to it where we're sort of attracted to it, but we're also a little bit afraid of it. It's like something, it could be very exciting, but there's also something a little bit evil about it, a little bit naughty. And if it didn't have those two elements, it wouldn't be this very powerful word that attracts us so much. So people who pretend that they want everything to be so comfortable and easy and perfect in their life. They want everything to be good, everything to be sweet and angelic. But people are complicated. They desire the opposite of what they say they think they want, right? So underneath every one of our desires is secretly something else, secretly something maybe the opposite that we want, but we're not aware of it. And so if everything in the seduction were so smooth and wonderful and pleasant, he's giving you chocolates and roses and it's wonderful, it doesn't have that edge to it. We want an edge to things in life, otherwise we're not interested in it. It gives it something, a little bit, a whiff of danger. It's something we haven't talked about. But seduction has to have an element of danger to it. It has to be like being involved with this person. It's not like my life is at stake, but something potentially bad could happen, or there's an adventure involved that I'm not used to, where I could lose something that I value. And that element of danger is actually a spice in our life. So my view of people today is that we're too tight. We're too like this. We're too political. We're too like holding on to things we want. We're like, I call it the new prudery in the art of seduction. This is the new prudery, is our political correctness. Everything has to be this way. I'm so moral and righteous. This is what's right and that's what's wrong. And secretly, underneath it all, we actually yearn for the opposite, because it's not natural for us to be so tight and wound up. The human being wants to loosen up. We want to laugh. We want to do the opposite of what's going on in society. We want things that are unconventional. We want things that are mysterious. We want things that are weird and strange. We don't want our lives to be so tight and controlled like everything is on the media, where you say one wrong thing and 8 million people are after you, right? So an element of political incorrectness, of taboo, of something I'm not supposed to be interested in that person, but I am. How exciting. I think is a very, very important part of a seduction, because people are wound up way too tight these days and they need a release, and they need that release is something that they would never normally do.
You know what hit me as you were talking? Have you read, I don't know if you've read this, or you'll be horrified that I'm asking you if you read this. Have you read 50 Shades of Grey?
No, but my wife has, and she talked to me about it. And so I'm kind of up on what it's all about.
When I was reading, it was utterly shocking.
But that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Exactly. That was what hit me.
So I do know about the book.
Yeah, that's what hit me, because I was like, when you were saying taboo, I was like, oh, I don't know. Like if something's taboo and someone's a little like edgy, I think people will get their back up. But actually, I take that all back, because you're 1,000% right. Because the book, you would have your, I want to say average woman who's like, maybe they've got yoga and they've got kids. They're still reading 50 Shades of Grey.
But it's not only reading 50 Shades of Grey. The whole romance fiction world is filled with 50 Shades of Grey. Where the male, believe me, because Anna's told me, she's instructed me about this. It's the hero, the male, who's got this kind of secret side to him. He's got a touch of evil to him. But the woman is going to be the one who's going to change him. And that's the whole thing even behind 50 Shades of Grey, where I think in the end she does kind of get him to settle down. That's the fantasy element. The fantasy element is, I meet this guy who's got this kind of secret. In this case, I guess he's into kind of sadism or BDSM. But secretly, the woman is attracted to that dark side of him.
you're 1,000% right. As you're reading it, you get more and more intrigued and enticed by the story, not less. And he gets her to do some crazy shit. Like, it's pretty raunchy. And I'm reading it and I'm like finding this fascinating.
Well, there you go.
But then Tom, my husband, who nothing can shock him, like he very rarely gets shocked by anything. He picks up the book and he's like, what is all the fuss about? Like, every woman that I've heard, you're obsessed with it. So he opens it to a random page and he reads one paragraph and he's like, oh my. He's like, even I'm shocked by this. And he's like, and it's hard to shock me. Yeah. But what was fascinating is that every woman loved it. And so do you think that's what it was? That it was
Definitely.
The storyline where you had this sweet woman who then ends up somewhat controlling this very good-looking, wealthy, dominant man.
Yeah.
And the sex around it is the taboo that keeps the thread pulling throughout the whole story.
Completely. It's a perfect example. You picked the perfect example of what I was trying to express, which you've been doing throughout this interview.
Oh, it literally just hit me in real time. It didn't even dawn on me about the taboo.
No, that's exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, you should maybe read the book if you want, but...
I don't know. I might be shocked.
No, I'm telling you. When Tom was shocked, he was like, babe, I've seen people at airports reading it. And he's like, if I was a guy reading a porno that was this graphic, he's like, everyone would judge me. He's like, but every woman's carrying it around like a pride of honor. And I was like, it actually is. Yeah. Like, it really was this beautiful moment of us women signaling each other to be like, I can handle the taboo.
Right.
Okay, so number 20, we've got mixed pleasure with pain. And you say mental, emotional, physical seduction.
Well, now we're entering the last stages of the seduction where you've been messing with the person psychologically. They've kind of had a back and forth dynamic with you where they're very excited, they're intrigued, but then they're pulling back because the things you've done that they're not sure about. And it's like a piece of metal that's getting weaker and weaker and weaker by all the bending back and forth, and they're on the verge of breaking. And so injecting a little bit of pain at the end of this, towards this moment in the seduction, like, I'm going to leave you, it's over, I'm done with you. Man, that'll be very, very powerful because there's been so much pleasure, so much excitement, so much interest involved that at that moment that you're going to pull back or that you do something kind of heartless is going to have a devastating effect on the other person. So I'm being the evil seducer now here, but giving that back and forth dynamic where you're leading them along, where it's very fun, it's pleasurable, exciting, but there are moments of doubt and pain really is what hooks the other person and gets them completely in your grasp. So if everything is pleasurable, it's not going to have the emotional impact. And if you put in, particularly near the end, these little doses of pain.
I really think it's important that you said at the end, because I think you're right, going back to the other ones. Like, if you did at the beginning, you're like, well, this is an asshole, like, I'm not seeing them again, and then you'd never see them again if it's a relationship. But doing it when you feel loved, when maybe you feel like you can trust them, you've been vulnerable with them, and then they do the pain, like that. The back and forth is so true, and it kind of then goes into the other point that you made about the confusion, right? Where it's like making them confused, where it's like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Oh my God, this hurts. This is amazing. This hurts.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, I don't know if this is going to sound too weird, but an orgasm is a kind of mix of that.
Oh, no, you're right.
An orgasm is so pleasurable it almost hurts.
You're right.
In French, they call it le petit mort, the little death. There's almost a sense of, it's too much, it's almost like I'm having a heart attack, but it's so fucking pleasurable, right? And so in the orgasm itself, which is the end goal perhaps in a seduction, this is kind of like a little mini orgasm where there's both that sense of this is so much fun, but it's also kind of a bit unpleasant, kind of mimics that sensation, if I'm not being too theoretical here.
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head, actually. Okay, we're going to move on now to number 21. Give them space to fall. The pursuer is pursued. If
you're pursuing someone so much, right, it's almost like it's getting too predictable here. Mm-hmm. And the sense of being constantly chased and sense of pursued is tiring. It's also a little bit frightening. And it's also like, where is this all ending? Right? It's going too much like you're in control of everything. If you take a step back, you're the one pursuing her, and now you step back and you don't call her as much, and you're doing your work and you're not so interested in her, suddenly she's going to have to pursue you because you've got your hooks in her so deeply. And the moment you've created this space, because think of it spatially, you're after her, it's like this, you're after her, and then you pull back. Now there's a space between you two. That space is where she's going to fall. And that's what I mean by it. So you've pulled back, and now she's going to pursue you because she doesn't want to lose it. It's been so interesting and so pleasurable. And she's so used to this dynamic that she's now going to turn around. The moment she pursues you in any way, it's over. You've seduced her. That's it. So it's got to be timed right. We're very near the end of our seduction here, because that literally means to fall, and we're like falling in love. So this is a book about getting people to love you. It's not a book about just having sex. It's all psychological. And literally falling in love is you can't control it, you're falling. So you're giving them space for them to fall, because if you're pursuing them, they're just backing up, but you want them to go like that.
I interviewed a CIA spy, and part of his techniques is to be able to convince someone to trust them and to love, right? To take their secrets. And he says that the thing that you need to do is they need to trust you, because people don't necessarily fall into love, they actually fall into trust. And it's the trust that they perceive as love. And I found that always fascinating.
Wow.
So we got number 23. So that was the last one I went to. Master the art of the bold move.
This is the end of it, the end game, which could be sex, whatever it is that you're after. Okay? But the problem that a man will have in this situation is he's so worried that he's going to offend the woman, that she's going to think that all he wants is sex. He's trying to be nice. And so he's reluctant to take the last step, right? But then to the woman, that signals, you've been doing this all along. You don't desire me that much. You're not willing to do something kind of aggressive. This is the moment that the woman wants something aggressive. She doesn't want you to hit her, but she wants you to take the initiative and do something which signals that you are so attracted to her, you are so in love with her, that you're just going to like pounce on her. And that's what ends a seduction. That's what's powerful. That's what moves the other person. But the fact that you're hesitating ruins the whole effect. So at the very last moment, it's your boldness that will consummate it. It's the boldness that in this situation, the woman actually wants.
Okay, so you wrote those. Oh my God, they're so powerful. And then you do a fourth one, which it's 24, which is kind of, you said the after effects. So beware of the after effects. What are the after effects?
Well, let's take it from, since this is your audience is female, let's take it from the woman's point of view. The man has been doing all of these things that have quite honestly require some effort, right? He's put, if it's been over the course of a couple months, let's just give it a little bit of time. We're not doing one of those pick up in a bar 3-day kind of things. It's been a couple months. He's been working at it, right? He's been doing these things. He's been taking you out here. He's been buying you things. You're also doing things as well. I'm not saying it's totally one-sided, but he's been putting in all this effort. Now he's got what he wants, and it's all gone, right? Now he doesn't need to take you out to a nice restaurant. Now he doesn't need to dress up nicely. He can just sit at home in his shorts and order pizza in and watch games. He starts to take you for granted, right? He stops seducing. Now, I'm saying in this 24 here, obviously you're not going to be giving the same amount of effort that you did earlier on. That would be exhausting. A couple that like you has lasted 22 years, if Tom or you were doing this for 22 years, you would have killed yourself by then. It'd be too much. No, you have to keep seducing a little bit on and on and on. You have to occasionally do surprises. You have to occasionally take them to someplace special. You have to be willing to keep dressing nicely or do something different to have that slight theatrical, that sort of fantasy element, there still has to be a little bit of mystery involved. If the other person becomes so familiar, then the spark, then the charge between you will dissipate. So there has to be a little bit of mystery, a little bit of space still between you, and some surprise. So naturally, it's going to get lesser the longer you're together, but it can't completely disappear. And a lot of women complain, at least I've heard, that he just stopped trying, right? It just, everything suddenly became, I just became somebody familiar to him, and all the magic was gone, and all the things that he used to do that were full of effort, all of it has just gone like that. And it's a devastating feeling, like I'm not worth it anymore, it's all over. And that kills a relationship.
Okay, I'd really love to break down the 9 seducer characteristic types. So let's talk about number 1, the siren.
Well, the siren is like the original seductress. So I maintain in the book that seduction was a strategy that women invented thousands of years ago because of the uneven power dynamic, quite honestly. So sex was the one tool back then that a woman had to gain power over a man. And so women invented the art of seduction as a way to turn the dynamic around, right? To have power over the man. So they developed this very elaborate art of how to hook a man so that he would become her slave, which was very, very powerful. And so the archetype of that is like Cleopatra, right? So the siren is the most primal, the most primitive form of seduction, of seductress. And these were literally, sirens were literally these mythical creatures that were on rocks in the sea, and their song was so powerful that men on ships would dive into the water to reach them, and then they would drown and die. So the siren is so powerfully attractive, so powerfully seductive, has such a sexual energy that men will dive into the water and kill themselves over them. They're so attracted to them. And so the siren kind of exudes this kind of very powerful sexual energy. She doesn't have to say anything. There was a charge about her that was very sexual and very powerful. And men would go wild over this, and they would pursue her, and then she would know how to keep stringing them along. So Cleopatra, who, as far as we know, was not incredibly beautiful. She had a bit of a nose, and the people who described her, she wasn't like a classic beauty. She was a master of psychology. She created this theater as if she were a living goddess, and men would go crazy over that. And, you know, the other classic example is Marilyn Monroe. So a siren will seduce any kind of man. She'll seduce the great athlete, like Marilyn Monroe seduced Joe DiMaggio. She will seduce the intellectual, like she seduced Arthur Miller. No man can resist a siren because of that energy that she exudes, that's so primal, and it's so rare. There are not that many sirens around, but a siren is the most devastating seductress of them all.
And I think it's quite a myth, right, that we think the siren is a goddess, is stunning, is beautiful.
No, she's a master of fantasy. She creates a fantasy that she does have all of these qualities. Now, Marilyn Monroe, yes, she was very beautiful, but I talk about in The Art of Seduction, Marilyn Monroe would go into a bar in New York and nobody would recognize her, right? It was all image. She knew how to use makeup, how to do her hair. But you take away her makeup, you take away her hair wasn't naturally blonde, you know? She was pretty, but she was not Marilyn Monroe. People wouldn't recognize her. It was all something she created. The siren creates her image. She creates something very theatrical, very powerful, very larger than life. Yeah, so it's not just about the face. Men are very visually oriented, right? But it's also the psychology involved that she's playing on.
That's fascinating. Also, when you were talking, I realized how much the confidence part makes a difference. Like a woman or even a guy being confident is very sexy. And so it doesn't almost matter what that person looks like. If you bring yourself, if you feel good in your own skin, that definitely has an impact on the people around you.
Yeah, but it has to be real confidence. Some confidence is kind of fake and inauthentic, and it's covering up loads of insecurities. And people can pick that up. But if it's real confidence, you're exactly right. Which brings us to the next one, the rake. And the reason I bring that up, the rake is the kind of most dominant male form of seducer. The rake is the male form of the siren. And there was a rake called Gabriele D'Annunzio, an Italian poet, that no woman could resist. It was amazing. He was one of the ugliest men. He was truly ugly. He was short. He had this horrible skin color. He had a nose. But he was a poet. And his words just flowed. Because the weakness of women is often words. And he was a fountain of beautiful words. And he was a master of seduction. The rake is a man who's really, really interested in women. You know, he's interested in their world, in their spirit. He often grew up with maybe a mother and sisters, so he's very comfortable around women. He knows them. He loves women. He loves their world, their energy, their spirit. But not a single woman can ever satisfy him. So he has to have 50, he has to have 100, he has to have 1,000 women in his life. And Errol Flynn, by the time he died, calculated that he'd slept with 3,000 women.
Whoa.
And he died at the age of 50. But the fact that he's so interested in their world, he's so attentive, is what's so devastatingly attractive to the woman. And he's so confident in himself. He's got this kind of male energy. He's like a tiger. He just knows who he is. And I'll just leave with one quote. There was a woman who was seduced by Errol Flynn, who was probably one of the greatest male seducers ever. And she said, sitting next to him was like having drunk 5 martinis. Me, I felt like so relaxed in his presence because he made me feel so relaxed by his confidence that I felt drunk without even having drunk anything because of his confidence.
You call the rake the bad boy, is what I've got in my note.
Yeah, he is. He is a bad boy. He's like Lord Byron. He's slept with his sister. He's slept with everybody. You know he's bad, but that's exactly why you're attracted to him.
Okay, so that was number 2, was the reiki. Number 3 is the ideal lover.
That's just simply like a Casanova who's able to fill your fantasies. He's very romantic. They know what you secretly really want, and they bring it to life in real time. They are the living incarnation of your deepest fantasies, right? And so Casanova, and also Rudolph Valentino, the great actor in the 20s, these were kind of classic ideal lovers. Yeah,
Casanova's definitely, I think, become the almost epitome for that.
Yeah.
The number 4, the dandy.
The dandy is somebody who's got a bit of androgyny to them. So the female dandy would be like Marlene Dietrich or Madonna. They kind of sometimes will dress like a man, but they're definitely a woman. They're not sexless, but they're a woman with a male streak. They're a man with a feminine streak. And, Freud talks about this. We all are kind of bisexual by nature. In other words, at birth, men have strong feminine qualities to them genetically, and the same for women. So we're almost sometimes attracted to the gender, our own gender, in the other person, which is a strange quality, but it's very much a very powerful trend. And the dandy isn't going to seduce everyone, but a lot of people are attracted to that kind of androgynous figure.
Interesting. Do you think that that's because of like the potential mirroring? So what I mean by that is there was this docuseries on Netflix, and it was about a guy that had like over 1,000 children. He was going to these sperm banks and he was like basically donating his sperm, but he was lying. And he had this compulsion. So he was going to all these sperm banks. And so he was...
What was he lying about?
So because you're only allowed to give sperm like a certain amount of times a year because you can't just populate the entire earth yourself with your sperm. So there's like laws and restrictions about how many times you can donate. And so he was faking it. So he was traveling, going to all these different places, faking his names and doing all these sperm donations so he can get all these women pregnant.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was there was this tiny little town and there were so many of these kids that were his. And what they were saying is that a child is more likely to be attracted to a sibling without obviously knowing it than a stranger. Because there's something familiar about them.
Yeah.
There's something that they are drawn to because when you mirror someone or when someone mirrors you, you feel very comfortable. And so they think that mirroring ends up happening with siblings. Yes. And that's why they're actually more likely to fall for each other than a stranger. So now I go back to what you just said, that if you're a man and you have some femininity in you, it's actually more appealing. I wonder if it's because of that, because now you feel seen, understood, more familiarity.
I think that's definitely true, but I also think there's a sexual component as well, where you're secretly attracted to your mirror image. It's a narcissistic thing, right? And you'll find a lot of they've done studies, men and women, who the partners they end up being or the people they're attracted to actually resemble family members, resemble the father, the mother, the brother, the sister. Not totally obvious, right. But in certain ways you can definitely see that was a very powerful part of the attraction. So it's not just the comfort, but it's also there's a sexual charge to that.
Fascinating. Okay, number 5 is the natural, who is more childlike.
That's the ultimate seducer type because you never suspect a child of being a seducer, but children are very seductive. So if you're very natural, if you're very comfortable, and you don't have much of a filter on what you say and what you do like a child does, but it's so innocent. It's like that's why we fall in love with animals or pets, right? They're so innocent. They can't help being what they are, right? So we fall in love with them for that very quality. Whereas people who try really hard, it's very off-putting. They're not being who they are. But when somebody can't help it, this is who they are, they're naturally playing these pranks, they're naturally making these jokes, they're naturally upset and emotional, we're naturally drawn to them. And Charlie Chaplin was kind of the icon of that. He played the kind of ultimate sort of child even in his 20s, 30s, and 40s. And it was devastatingly seductive on women, that quality.
All right, so we've got number 6, the coquet that we already spoke about. Number 7 is the charmer.
Well, the charmer is a seducer without sex. So it'll be like someone who's a social seducer. And you say things that make the other person feel so good. You make everybody around you feel, it's like high-level social skills. There's a famous quote about, there was 2 Englishmen. There was Benjamin Disraeli, who was a prime minister under Queen Victoria, and then there was his rival, a man named Gladstone. And they kind of hated each other. And a princess sat in between them once at a party. And she said, talking to Mr. Gladstone, I felt like he was the smartest man in the world. But talking to Mr. Disraeli, I felt like I was the smartest woman in the world. And that's what a charmer is. He makes you feel like you are the star, you are the most wonderful person. Not him or her, but you. All the attention is on you. And he has a high level of social skill to make you completely feel comfortable and make you feel like you are the most brilliant person in the world.
Okay, number 8, we've got the charismatic, who is, you call mysterious, has eloquence, theatricality, uninhibited vulnerability, and adventurousness.
The way I define it is a person who's charismatic, it's like they have a light inside of them, like a light bulb or a lamp that's inside of them. You can't see it, but it animates everything from them. Their face, their eyes, their gestures, they feel like they're lit up from within, and it's very powerful. They have this confidence and this energy. I talk in there about John F. Kennedy, who had charisma, and I talk about Marilyn Monroe, who was a charismatic. And the thing about people with deep levels of charisma, And I worked with 50 Cent on a book. He has tremendous charisma, and I could see it in real life. You know, it is very real. The weird thing about charismatics is they often come from broken homes. They come from a childhood where they didn't get any love. Almost invariably you will find this. And what that means is, in order to get the love that everybody wants, the validation and the attention, they have to get it from other people. They have to get it from crowds. They have to get it from an audience. They have to get it from the camera and all the millions of people who are going to watch them. They have such a need for love and attention because they never got it, that they project that out onto the world. That is the lamp that's lighting them up from the inside and making everything that they do seem so animated and so exciting. So feeling like you were never loved, but you need it from the public is often what makes a charismatic, that quality. And you will almost always find that they come from deprived childhoods.
Wow. And so as a child, because you were so deprived, how did you get that light? I would have thought it would be the opposite.
Well, it can have the opposite effect. So not everybody who has a deprived childhood turns into a charismatic.
True.
So often you're so beaten down, you feel so worthless that it doesn't have that effect. But you take a strong personality like Marilyn Monroe, who was an orphan, who grew up in an orphanage and had dealt with abusive men, etc., had a very, very rough childhood, right? But she's a very strong personality. And so she's desperate for love in her life. Now, if some women wouldn't have that effect, they would just kind of shrink and find another way to get it. She needed that love, so she had to find it. She found it through modeling and through acting, etc. You know, John F. Kennedy had a very troubled relationship with his father. He was not the preferred son in the family. There was another son who was like the golden boy. When he was in the public, he wanted the whole world to fall in love with him. I talk about Malcolm X and his childhood. Winston Churchill, one of the most charismatic political figures ever, had a terrible childhood. Even though he came from a very wealthy family, he was completely ignored, right? Had a very rough childhood. So charismatic figures feel a deep need to get the love and attention that we all need, but not from one person, but from a whole country, from a whole audience, from the public itself.
Wow.
And that's what lights up everything inside of them.
And you think that then stems most likely from a wound from childhood?
I think so.
Yeah, makes complete sense. It almost feels like that would be a great survival mechanism for you as a kid, right? It's like if you don't have people to love you, no one's looking at you, no one cares for you, and you have charm and charisma, right? You can make people laugh, you can make people feel amazing, like they want to be around you. Now, instead of being isolated, alone, with no one, now actually you've been the magnet that's drawn those people. Yeah, makes complete sense. And then the final character type is the star. And you say this is the most powerful of all. Well,
it's the most modern form. It's kind of based on cinema. And the star is sort of hard to verbalize, but it's a person who attracts fantasies. So there's a kind of a slight blankness to them, a kind of a mysterious quality, where we see onto them whatever we want to see, right? We project onto them all of our fantasies, all of our desires, and they know how to attract that kind of attention. So actors and actresses are kind of the classic example. They're the star, obviously, but they know how to embody a certain kind of fantasy. And if they were too strong about it, if they projected it too outward, you wouldn't give room for people to fantasize about it. But the fact that you're kind of empty, that there's nothing mysterious, there's something mysterious about you, almost as there's something kind of empty, that we can now see what we want to see in you, is the primal kind of star quality. And I talk in the book about people who have it. They're kind of modeled on movie stars.
All right, we've gone through so much, Robert, but I got one more question.
Uh-oh.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, especially being a woman, what would be the key things as a woman that we can do if we wanted to seduce a man?
Knowing how to play a little hard to get would be good, a skill to reinvent that's kind of been lost now. knowing how to hook a man, but keep him hooked, and to kind of signal that you're interested in him, that there's something physical, and men are very visually oriented, so there's something about you that excites them. But you're getting them to pursue you. You see, men like to pursue. We're like hunters. I hate to be so brazen about it. We like the chase. To get a man to chase after you is exactly what he wants. But if you're too available, if you're just like surrendering after the first date, then he'll lose interest because there's no chase involved. So you've got to know how to kind of put a little honey in the bait and keep him going and withdraw and say, no, but not too much. And if you can get a man to chase you, then, you're the one in control of it. You're the one in control of the dynamic.
So would you recommend to never, as a woman, you shouldn't chase men?
Well, it's ironic, but the fact that you are getting him to chase you means that you are the one in control of the dynamic.
Yeah.
We're so stupidly logical sometimes that we don't realize that things are kind of ironic, things are the reverse of what they seem. We're too literal minded. So to get somebody to pursue you means that you are the one actually doing the work. You're the one actually in control. So it's not like you're chasing him, but you are in some ways doing that by withdrawing, by getting him to come after you. But yeah, if you're the aggressor, if you're chasing the man, that could be interesting for a man, and that might lead to sex on the first or second date. But I don't think it's going to lead to a long-term, to anything that it's going to be very exciting and have a lot of spice to it. So keep in mind that what excites a man is the chase itself. It's what makes men cheat on their wives, quite frankly. Everything has become too obvious, too familiar. There's no more chase involved. Now there's this new young woman, this secretary, that's just this woman in my office. I get to chase her, right? There's an animal I get to hunt. That'll happen. That's why a man will cheat on his wife, because there's no more chasing going on in the relationship. So, we're generalizing because not all men are like that. But I think being an aggressive woman can work on some men and can work very quickly. But I think a more powerful thing to seduce a man is to do the opposite, get him to chase you. I could be wrong. I could be an old guy who does totally out of touch with the Tinder age, and I recognize my own limitations, that I grew up in an era where seduction was much different than it is now. So I understand that I might be a dinosaur and that, but I do think that human psychology basically doesn't change, and that the things that I've spelled out eventually will kind of be revealed, even in our online world.
I interviewed a guy called Matt Hussey, and he's a relationship coach, and he was telling me about how
you interview so many weird, interesting people.
I love. Yes, I do.
You do. You have a great job.
Thank you. Wow. I've been dying and so excited for today. I feel like I'm geeking out like a little child right now. Yeah. But what he said to me was, back in like the 20s, when people would date, it was about the pursuit. Women understood, and so did men. So women understood they had to give these small micro signals to the man to say, okay, it's okay to pursue me now. The guy would wait for signals and look, and then they would do the pursuit. And there was this beautiful tango. Right. And he said back in the day, a woman would just be on the street corner and have like a little handkerchief. And she would accidentally drop the handkerchief, and she would wait for the guy to come and pick it up. And you'd be like, oh, thank you so much. That was how we were back then. And we've just lost that art form. So I think that the psychology of it is completely accurate. Now, look, I could be old too, Robert. Like, I'm 45 and been married for 22 years. But I truly believe the psychology is exactly the same.
It's a very confusing time to be a man. What is masculinity? What does it mean to be, a man in the 21st? What are our icons? What are our ideals? But the idea of being able to trot out your energy, your testosterone, your masculine energy, and to chase a woman and to have it end in a seduction and in sex is as primal as it gets, and that is not going away in 2,000 years, in 10,000 years. I don't care. But however we evolve, That is who we are. So these things don't change.
And I think women, I'm going to also echo that, women always want to feel wanted.
Yeah.
And I don't think that has ever changed. And so
Yeah.
I think even in the pursuit, it's like if a guy's pursuing you, it makes you feel wanted.
Yeah.
And I do worry. Now, look, I'm a woman who's in business, who's built multiple businesses with my husband. So I want to caveat that and still say that as a woman, I like crushing it in business, but I still love being soft and safe in my husband's arms. And I do also worry for the female younger generation that it's all about be your own girl, you don't need a man, screw them. And the truth is that no, you don't need a man, but if you want one, that's beautiful. And how, as women, the thing that I try to talk a lot about is how do we ebb and flow in our masculinity and our femininity. And for me, it's when I have to make hard decisions. I have to make hard decisions. I go into my masculine energy, if you will. And I have to be just business oriented. But when I go home with my husband, I want to bring in that feminine energy. And I worry that we're not talking about both and that people now feel like they have to be one or the other.
Well, the thing is, one thing to keep in mind is being in a relationship with a woman from the man's point of view actually feminizes a man. And being in a relationship from the woman with the man actually makes a woman more masculine. The trait of the other gender kind of rubs off on you, and that quality, that interaction has a dissolving effect. So if if women say, I don't want to be interested in men, I've had enough of them, screw them, they're just going to feed toxic masculinity and make it worse and worse and worse and worse. The power you have over men is by relating to them, by bringing your world into them, by locking them into a relationship where they learn how to be in a relationship, they learn how to care, they learn how to be empathetic. You're feminizing them. So your desire to get away from them is going to have the opposite effect that you